the value of it lied in the parallel work we did conceptually, emotionally, and then applying it to when we organized an ORD meeting using the principles that emerged through the equity audit to then do something concrete.
Our experience of doing the equity audit and saying that we were going to apply the things that we were taking from it immediately to the awardee meeting was really an important process. I think it was incredibly hard, and I don't recommend it, but it really forced me personally to consider how we had or hadn't defaulted to things that had been done in the past. Even if it was before I was at CASE, I was having this tendency to default to how things were done before, just because it was incredibly stressful and incredibly time consuming. Nobody had any time.
This piece, it was one of the biggest deliverables that CASE does, so we had to center that. And I think we found a way to bring in the equity audit into that work. And so ultimately that felt like a success. But I think all to say that I think you can do an equity audit without having done an awardee meeting, and we would have had something really helpful. I think we also could have done an awardee meeting that centered equity without necessarily having the full audit work. I think they complemented each other beautifully. But if someone else were to do this, I'm not sure that they would need to do a similar parallel track. I'm very proud of the work we did around the awardee meeting and the equity audit, but I also feel like we could have done a lot more had we had the time and the ability to be more reflective in the way that we were using some of the rubrics or in putting some things together. But that's an area where it was great to do, but I also felt like that itself was a bit of a compromise. I think you could do it as a phased approach where you do the audit and then take those pieces and apply it, because now you're seeing a lens of where you have gaps or where you have strengths or where you just have questions that emerge that might be important to take up and try and practice. So I think you can do it both ways. They probably lead you to slightly different processes and different levels of insight based on how you phase it.
And it might be that some organizations have an opportunity to apply it while it's happening and others do not. And so, but what I hear here is that these are different approaches to do an equity audit with something concrete already in mind versus an equity audit that phases the audit and then afterwards you apply it. It's a different pathway, and one would have to make decisions about which one is best for one's organization, given context.
Me, the other piece of it was just this really practical set of expectations and routines that we started integrating into our daily work. And people have spoken about that already, but just the equity check-in, which is something that we did at the beginning of every co-PI meeting. We didn't always say something, but we often did, and that often led to some really interesting insights or connecting of the dots. So just making space for that when we're in the midst of like really stressful work was something that I don't think I would have expected to happen without the equity audit.